and they're pretty tiny. That's what makes it hard to just drop one seed per cell. But the great thing about onions, as I told you earlier, what's up, Lazy Dog fam? Hope all y'all are having an awesome day. It is Thursday, September 19th here in South Georgia, and on today's video I'm going to show you how anyone, regardless of their space or growing situation, can grow their own onion plants. So over the years on this channel, just talking to people, I feel like we have encouraged and taught a lot of people how to grow their own onion plants, and that's great. But I feel like there's still a decent amount of people that are maybe a little scared or apprehensive to try it due to their growing situation, and that's why today I'm going to show you just how easy it is regardless of how much space you've got. But first, let me explain why you would want to grow your own onion plants as opposed to just buying some plants online, or maybe going to your local feed and seed store and buying onion plants. I can get onion plants around here at the local feed and seed store for pretty dang cheap. Usually they'll have them, say, late October, maybe early November. You can go buy bundles of those. They're ready to be planted in the ground. But I have certain varieties that I like to grow that I can't find plants for, and so that's why I like to grow my own plants. I also find that plants that I grow, they're not wrapped up in that bundle, dried out, sitting on a shelf somewhere for a few days. They're going straight from the greenhouse into the ground, so we don't have near as much of kind of a delay in growth there. They take right off when we put them in the ground. Now, it's always important to note when we're talking about onions, depending on where you live, you got to grow different varieties of onions, and you're going to start your onions at a different time. So down here in the south, we're in what they call the short day region. You've also got the intermediate day region and the long day region up north. So we're in the short day region as indicated by this map right here that I'll throw up on the screen, and that means we're going to start our onion seeds now, usually early to mid September, and then aim to get those onion plants in the ground in November. We're going to grow them throughout the winter and usually harvest, say, late April, early May. Now, not everybody in that short day region can overwinter onions like we can, because in some of that short day area it might get a little too cold for onions. Onions are typically good down to about 20 degrees. If you regularly get below 20 degrees and you don't have a way to cover or protect those onions, I don't know that I would try overwintering them. But if you rarely get below 20 degrees or you've got a way to protect them, go for it. Now, whether you're growing short day onions and starting in the fall like we are, or growing intermediate day or long day onion plants and starting, say, late winter, early spring the following year, you want to give yourself about 8 weeks to grow out some nice onion transplants. Onions are great because they hold well in the trays. It's not like other things we grow out from transplants where you're worried about them getting root bound or anything like that. So onion plants hold well. If you start too early and you're not quite ready to get them in the ground, it's okay. They'll be fine sitting on those trays another week or two. But give yourself about 8 weeks. So look at what your intended in-ground date is, count back about 8 weeks, and that's when you want to get your seed started. Another great thing about onions that makes them really easy to start from seed and grow your own plants is you don't have to worry about planting them too thick. So it's not like tomatoes or peppers or other things where we need to have just one seed per cell or container. Onions, we can plant them really thick because they're so easy to tease apart and thin when we get ready to plant them. So we could plant them in a nice big bunch, as I'll show you here in a minute, and just pull them apart and then put those individual plants in the ground. So let's go inside the greenhouse here and let me show you a wide variety of containers or trays that you could use to grow your own onion plants. And keep in mind, you can do this with an indoor seed starting setup. You don't need a greenhouse to grow your own onion plants. So we've got several different containers or trays here that we're going to demonstrate starting onion seeds in today. Let's start out with the more traditional seed starting tray. I've got two here. I've only got one of these filled because I'm just going to plant one of these. So this is a larger celled seed starting tray here. I think those cells are about, 1 inch by 1 inch. Here's a smaller celled tray that we're going to use today. I really like using these PropTech trays for onions. Those cells there are only about a 1/2 inch square. So good bit smaller than those. In these larger inch cells, you can probably get away with, I don't know, 3 or 4 onion seeds. You can grow more than 1 plant per cell. These right here, I try to just put 1 seed per cell, but sometimes I drop 2 or 3 and it ends up being okay. Well, what if you don't own any trays like this, or maybe you don't have room for trays like this, or maybe you don't need that many onion plants? You can go much smaller. We can take some little pots like this that I got from the dollar store and grow out a decent handful of onion plants in each of those pots. We could also use some of these smaller pots, these 2.5 inch pots here. Or we could use just an open bottom tray like we have right here. Just fill it with soil and grow a bunch of onion plants in there and just thin them out as we plant them. Now, important to note here, these 2.5 inch pots do have holes in the bottom. These green pots don't have holes in the bottom, and this bottom tray here doesn't have holes in the bottom. That just means I got to be a little more careful not to overwater these. If you're worried about that, you can always drill holes in the bottom so they do drain. So as you can see there, you don't have to have fancy seed starting trays to grow your own onion plants. Heck, you could do this in a Tupperware container. You don't even have to have real pots. Use a plastic Tupperware dish. That'll be just fine for growing onion plants too. So let's start with this heavy duty tray here, and then I'll show you how we do it in those smaller pots and the bottom tray. Now, I've already came in here and made some tiny little depressions just like that in these cells, only about 1/4 inch deep there. And the varieties we're going to be planting here today are all varieties we have on our website. Keep in mind, you shouldn't be growing these unless you're in the short day region. So these are all short day onion varieties. So we've got the DP Sweet here. That's a nice big sweet onion. Have gotten close to 3 pounds with those in the past. We've got Timon, which is a nice round sweet onion. Georgia Boy is more of the real flat kind of Vidalia type sweet onions. White Phantom is a great white onion variety for down here. And then Chianti, a really impressive red onion variety that is very resistant to bolting and going to seed. It makes some monsters as well. Now, if you've never seen onion seeds, this is what they look like. You can see there, they're black and they're pretty tiny. That's what makes it hard to just drop 1 seed per cell. But the great thing about onions, as I told you earlier, we can drop multiple seeds per cell because these things are really easy to thin once they grow out. So in this tray, with these smaller 1/2 inch cells, I'm going to try to just drop 1 seed per cell. But if I accidentally drop 2, I'm not going to go in there and fish it out. It's not a big deal. So smaller cells like this, yeah, try to go for 1 seed. Not a big deal if you get 2 or 3. So now we've got our seeds dropped in all those cells for all 5 of those varieties. Some cells have 1 seed, some have 2, some have 3. Now we need to cover those seeds. We could do that with more seed starting mix, more of this Pro Mix BX here, but I really like to use perlite, preferably this Go Dogs perlite. This stuff works really good. So we just want to lightly, let me use this hand, lightly cover those seeds. Onion seeds don't have to be planted very deep at all. I like to put just enough in here to cover those seeds, but so that I can still see the divisions between those cells there. So that tray is done. Now let's move on to these smaller pots. So for these here, obviously we don't have divisions or cells within these pots. So what we're going to want to do is just kind of lightly scatter the seeds over the top of this pre-moistened seed starting mix, this Pro Mix BX here. I think I'm going to do DP Sweet in this little pot here and in this larger pot. Same thing with Georgia Boy. That way we can have a nice little comparison. So I'm going to get more seeds out here. And we want to spread these out pretty thick, but not too thick. So just sprinkle them on there almost like you were sprinkling salt on a steak. So just sprinkle, I don't know, 20-25 seeds or so in a small pot like that. And then we'll take our larger pot here, sprinkle seeds over that as well. Get all those seeds in there. And then we'll do the same thing with our Georgia Boy variety here in those 2. And just like with the cell tray, we need to lightly cover these seeds, which we could do with more Pro Mix. I'm going to use perlite again, so just a light little dusting over the top of those little pots, and then get these larger pots here. Don't need a whole lot there. just enough to cover that soil so we can't see any of the pro mix. And then lastly, we've got our bottom tray here, which obviously doesn't have sails again. You could use a bottom tray with holes. This one doesn't have holes, as I mentioned earlier. And I'm going to show you just how many onion plants you can grow in a 10 by 20 tray like this. So we're going to plant the Timon variety in here. I've got some leftover seeds from planting that sail tray earlier, and then I've got another pack of 200 here, and I don't think that is too much at all for a tray like this. You could probably get away with planting even more in here. So let's open up our packet here, and we're going to start sprinkling, just trying to get them as evenly distributed as possible in there. You can always thin these out at planting, so no worries if we get them a little too thick. So there will be somewhere around probably 300 or so onion seeds that we'll have in this pot here. You don't have to plant them that thick, but I want to do this just to show you that we can plant them very thick and they'll be fine. And as you might have guessed, now that our seeds are down, we're going to cover these with perlite as well. Just a light dusting on top of that pro mix there should be sufficient. You don't have to bury those seeds, just need to lightly cover them. And there we go. So whether you've got traditional seed starting trays, just a bottom tray, small pots, or larger pots, anyone can grow their own onion plants. So stay tuned, because as those germinate, we'll show you how we like to feed those onion seedlings to grow them out nice and healthy. We'll also show you how we like to trim the tops on those onion seedlings a little bit to make them a little more tough and hardy when we get ready to put them in the ground. And one very important thing to note before we go: if you buy onion seeds from us or from anyone else, know that onion seeds typically don't have a very long shelf life. The germination rate can drop off a decent amount from year 1 to year 2. So I would recommend using all the onion seeds you get in a given packet. Just go ahead and plant them all, because the germ rate might not be that great the following year. Plant them all, share those onion plants. Usually it's pretty easy to get rid of onion plants. Everybody wants to grow a few onions. So I hope you enjoyed the video today. Let me know in the comments below if you've got your onion seeds started yet, and if you just can't wait to see ours germinate. Watch this video right here. We'll show you some from past years that have grown out and show you how we take care of them and get them ready to go in the ground. So check that out, and we'll see you next time right here at Lazy Dog Farm.